You focus? No, that's not right.
Yeah, I will have this spreadsheet open so I can figure out who my threats are.
Alright. G'day, jabronis. It is the Verd here with the UBC once again, and we are here for another Season 3 coach interview. And today I'm speaking with royalty. This is one of the rare times that a champion is talking to another champion. I am joined by the Season 2 champion of the UBC, Choice CJ. Welcome, friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, Verd. Hey guys, it's your friend Choice CJ here.
So, obviously, people should know what your team name is, but just in case they don't, introduce your team to the world.
Sure, I am the Baltimore Oriolus.
Oh, I swear, when Adam did that video where he was trying to pronounce it, I literally almost died.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, like, some people have different ways that they like to pronounce Riolu. Some people say Riolu instead, so
And
I can
also,
understand.
I think it's that he didn't understand the concept of what an Oriole actually is either.
Yeah, perhaps not. Maybe he's not a baseball fan.
Oh, dude. Orioles good. I'm more of a San Fran Giants man. That's just me, but
Oh, okay. Well, they've had a good run, so
they
what
beat
can you say
the
about
Pirates
that?
the other day. It was pretty good. But anyway, so you are the Baltimore Orioles. Now let's talk about your channel a little bit. What can people expect when they go over to see your channel?
Yeah, sure. So there's, I guess, two main things that I do on my channel. I do usually about 2 Showdown lives a week, usually in OU, but sometimes in other tiers. And then so that's part 1, and then part 2 really is just league content. So UBC is a league that I participate in. I'm also a member currently of the PMCD League, which has a few more weeks, and then playoffs will begin. I've also participated in the Orange League in the past. So a lot of competitive Pokemon just in general.
I remember, it's crazy, guys. I first met CJ in the Orange League. He took over like a janky team, and he struggled a bit through the season. And I said, you know what, man? When you get a good team, you're going to do really well. And look where we are now. Look
That's
where
right.
we are. So, obviously, like we said, you were part of the Orange League. Do you want to talk about any other past league experience you've had? So we talked about the UBC, the PMCD League, and the Orange League. Any other leagues you've been a part of?
So that's really it. I mean, I've been playing Pokemon competitively pretty much since X and Y came out. You know, obviously I first played the games when they came out with Red and Blue, but kind of took a break for 4th and 5th gen. I really got back into it in 6th gen when some of the big Poketubers started making videos on it. But I didn't really get into playing competitive until the beginning of this year. Started into Orange League, as you mentioned. I took over for another coach in the Orange League, and did some learning, I guess is the polite way to say it. I learned with the team and managed to come up with exactly 0 wins. And then in UBC Season 2, I had an opportunity to draft my own team for the first time, and I got something that I was very comfortable with. And obviously the results speak for themselves. And now I think I'm trying something a little different in the PMCD League. I drafted a pretty different team, something that's kind of outside my comfort zone, and I'm starting to find some success with it.
Now, to put in perspective how good his season was last season, guys, J-Specs and I had him ranked 8th and 9th respectively going into a season of 10 players. We thought that his draft was okay, but we felt he was untried at the battle. We didn't know how he was going to go with his own team, and he proved like everybody wrong. It was like freaking total underdog story. It was sick. But obviously now you're going into a season where you're not the underdog. Everybody knows you can battle now. They've seen it not only in the UBC but also in the D League. People know you're a player. So do you feel like it's going to create a lot more pressure on you when it comes to battling now, because there's that expectation from people now seeing you battle?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I do think that I'm gonna be there's gonna be a lot more pressure to perform. But you know, that being said, I'm pretty confident in my abilities as a battler, and you know, I've fought a lot of these coaches in this league before, and they're all very good. But I've started to show good records against these people, so I know that, you know, I can hang with the best of them. And you know, just got to make sure that going into each match, I try and focus on, you know, just kind of having fun and just shaking, you know, being loose and shaking it off, so that way I can spend most of my effort making the best decisions rather than freaking out about whether I'm going to win or lose.
For sure. Now, obviously you've had experience now through the UBC that was on Showdown and the D League is currently on Wi-Fi. Which one do you find you're preferring more, Wi-Fi or Showdown?
So I would say Showdown, and it's not for any. I wouldn't say it's for a very good reason. It's just because Showdown makes it so easy, with keeping track of moves and keeping track of HP, and just even being able to see the Pokemon that your opponent brought to a game. Like, you don't get that. You get to see that at the beginning on Wi-Fi, but there's no way for you to double check unless you wrote it down originally. So I guess that's kind of a lame reason. It's it's kind of like a scrubby reason to enjoy Showdown better than Wi-Fi. I do like the fact that on Wi-Fi, like, I feel very anxious. Not anxious, but there's like more suspense, right? There's like a certain level of excitement to it that isn't necessarily there with Showdown. Because I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat the whole time I'm battling on Wi-Fi. So I do like that part, but I just feel like my abilities on Showdown are better than my abilities on Wi-Fi at the moment. So maybe once I get better at playing on Wi-Fi, I'll feel differently. But for now, I'm just gonna have to stick with Showdown.
That's understandable, man. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just everyone's each to their own. I prefer Wi-Fi because I feel there is a lot more planning and preparation that goes into it, and it's that kind of situation of once you've clicked a move, there's no going back. Even if it's a mistake or a great play, you just got to kind of back yourself a bit more. Whereas in Showdown, I find there's a lot more second guessing because you're looking at all the stats and everything and overthinking it, and I find I'm a huge overthinker. So when I'm on there, I kind of prefer Wi-Fi. I think it's also like doing a full season of Wi-Fi gives you a bit more of a perspective of it. So maybe by the end of the season of the D League, you might have a bit more of a broader view of Wi-Fi. We'll see. But
yeah, I definitely respect that. The only other thing that I'll add on the topic, and because I've gotten into some fun arguments with friends about this, about the fact that there aren't actually any more or less hacks on Showdown versus cartridge. That's just, I think it's confirmation bias. I think it's a total myth. It's like when people used to complain that online poker was rigged and they would be flushing all their money down the toilet. They're like, oh, the website's trying to take my money, and it's like, no, you're just actually just bad. Not that people who complain about hacks are bad, but I guess my point is that I bet if you did an analysis of 100,000 turns on Pokemon Showdown, that you'd see that the hacks are precisely the same amount that you'd see on cartridge.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But let's just keep this ball rolling. So what do you feel is your greatest strength in a draft-based format?
So that's a really good question. It kind of comes and goes. Like, some weeks I feel like I'm better at team prep, and then other weeks I feel like I'm just really good at executing my plan and kind of identifying what it is that I need in order to win. I try to be fairly aggressive with my plays if I think it's going to put me in a good position to win. So I think overall, I guess so. One other thing that I didn't mention just now is also drafting. I think now that I've drafted a couple of teams, I'm pretty happy with all the teams that I've put together, and I think that's a really important skill by itself when it comes to counter league, because you could be the most talented person and then you just don't have the tools. It's like if you're like the best football player on the planet, but you don't have any cleats or a helmet or anything else, like, you're not really gonna have a good time.
Yeah, no, I got you. So on the flip side of this as well, what do you feel is your biggest weakness or your biggest flaw that you find in this kind of format for yourself?
So sometimes I guess the thing that's tough, like when you have a naturally aggressive play style, you find yourself in some situations where you make over predictions, and that can definitely come and bite you in the butt. Because if you're making like an aggressive switch into an offensive Pokemon and you take a big hit, you're neutering one of your most important paths to victory. So I won't know if that's necessarily a weakness, but I think it's just a consequence of playing the way that I sometimes like to do. Sometimes if I think through it more carefully, like, I'll say, okay, there's too much risk involved in this. let me not make that play, even though the reward would be really great. But sometimes I don't always do that, you know? So I think that's probably one thing that I'd like to work on.
That's fair enough. Alright, so coming into this draft, obviously, do you have a certain plan going into it? Do you feel like there's certain things that you want to get?
Yes, definitely. So I've been in a couple of leagues now, and I forgot to mention too, there's another league that I play that's not YouTube related, that I play with some friends that I've met on Pokemon Showdown. And so between that, UBC, PMC, and Orange League, there's a bunch of Pokemon that I've now used and had good success with. So basically, my strategy is going to be to build a sort of all-star team of all the Pokemon that I've used in the past. And some of them are lesser used in a typical league. Some of them are very highly used and are highly thought of. So I have high hopes for this draft. I think it's going to, it's going to really showcase the things that work and the things that don't in a counter league for Pokemon.
Alright, sounds good. So now, since you've got a bit of experience in the format, you'll be able to probably answer some of these questions. So what do you feel is the most undervalued Pokemon that you've encountered in a draft-based format?
That's a good question. So one that I'll start off with right away is Sableye. Sableye is actually pretty hyped these days, ever since Season 4 of GBA. But what I meant to say was Sceptile, which I used last season in UBC. People have typically thought of it as having a kind of narrow move pool, which I don't necessarily disagree with. But the fact of the matter is it's so fast and its stabs are so good, especially Dragon Pulse, that, it's just a really great revenge killer and a really great cleaner. So I think that's really good. Other Pokemon that are underrated, I don't know if it's quite underrated, but I think Gengar deserves some mention. Just because of how good offensive ghost typing is in the league format. Like when your ghost resist is like Bisharp, you're not really gonna have a good time, generally speaking. What else would I say? I think some defensive Pokemon are deserve special mention. Like Skarmory is really great. I think that's probably one that you have some experience with, Bird. And I think it's really pretty sturdy. Rotom Wash I think is really nice, because people think of the defensive set all the time, but it has some really good offensive capability as well. So that's just a few. Absol I think is underrated. Mega Absol. Yeah. Oh, and Entei. Entei is probably the last one.
I definitely wouldn't say that Entei is underrated. I feel that's people are very fully aware of what that thing can do, but definitely agree with a lot of those choices. Now let's look at the kind of flip side of this. What do you feel are some of the most overrated Pokemon in this draft format? The things that people hype up way too much.
I think the one that I always go to first is Mew. Just because, it is obviously fantastic that it learns every single TM and move tutor move in the game and stuff like that. But I just feel like it, I don't know, it just doesn't excel at any role. I've tried to use Mew in the past, and granted it was like early on in my battling career, but I didn't have the greatest success with it. Personally, for like a jack of all trades type of Pokemon, I do like Jirachi better. I have used that twice now, and it's the type of Pokemon that I know I can bring every single week. Just because, it has a great move pool as well. Its typing, I think, is a little bit better because it gives it better stab. And also, it has a better ability. Another Pokemon, I think that I would say, I think, Mega Scizor is commonly looked at as an overrated Pokemon just because it's really hard to get over the weakness to fire. And you can kind of say the same thing for a lot of slow Pokemon that have 4 times weakness, like a weakness to, like a 4 times weakness to grass or to ice or whatever. Those are the big ones that I think of. Then there's not really a ton of other. Yeah, there's nothing else that really jumps to mind immediately besides those ones. I bet we could go back and forth. Like Mega Altaria is not really that great in my opinion, but I think that it's becoming common knowledge that it's not very good in Counter League. I think not an uncommon opinion anymore.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely feel the same. So moving on though, coming into this season, obviously a bit of a target on your back. So, is there anybody that you're fearing battling, like people you're not really looking forward to going up against?
So I can really only comment on the people that I do know. There's a lot of teams in here that I'm not familiar with. But that being said, that like people like Jack and RG and Adam are all really capable of taking games off of anybody on any given week. I've also had trouble battling against Kohona in the past. He and I met in the regular season of UBC Season 2, and I lost in a pretty painful 100 turn match. I was able to exact some revenge on him in the playoffs, though, so that makes me feel a little bit better about my matchup with him going into this season. But yeah, it's everyone else I basically have like a 50-50 record against. So that never makes me feel very good, if you never know if you have the advantage going into a game or not.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the flip side of this now is who are you actually looking forward to battling? Is there anybody that you're really keen on facing, saying like, yeah, I want to take this guy on again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm while, as I mentioned a moment ago, you're always anxious about some of these rematches. They are also at the same time very fun, and they give lots of opportunity for fun smack talk and stuff like that. Especially since we're all friends and we can all joke around and stuff like that. I am really eager to see, some of these new competitors, some of the people who I'm not really familiar with, like, Marcus and Devin and Alex and, obviously all of those guys, but I can't remember everyone off the top of my head. We have a huge league this year.
We do.
We have
14 teams. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not big relative to something like GBA, but for us, for our tiny little league here, this is feeling pretty huge. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see all the fresh blood, and I think it's going to be a great way to mix it up.
And the final question I'm going to ask you now, initially this question was going to be, who is going to be the UBC Season 3 champion? And obviously, a lot of the people will just say themselves, and that's fine. You do need to have that confidence if you want to win a league. I fully understand that. But what I'd really like to hear from you is, if you weren't able to win the championship, who would you be okay with, coming runner-up to, or who would you like to see win it?
That's a good question. I think, I would, if I feel like at the end of the season, I'll have a much better answer to this question because I'll know everybody a little bit better. And, I'll know who it is who really has some good battling skills. I feel like I'll know who really outclassed me in every game. Right now, I feel like, folks like Adam and RG, I would be really excited to see them take the championship. I think Adam probably would be a less humble champion than maybe myself or RG, but he's had some very bitter defeats, so I have some sympathy for him. I'd be happy to see Jack win because he's a good friend of mine, but he's also the meme king. So love you, Jack, but we'll leave the memes to somebody else. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
That's excellent, man. Honestly, you have been a fantastic guest for this little interview. I'm sure everybody's learned a little bit more about you, and honestly, I for one can say that I am very excited to see how you can go even further. I was about to say even further beyond. I thought of Goku against Majin Buu, for God's sake. I was saying that the exact line. I'm like, oh god. But I go even further in this league and cement yourself as an excellent player in this draft-based format. But guys, that is going to do it for this interview. Go check out CJ's channel. He does amazing content. Check out, he's obviously got the UBC coming up, obviously with the draft soon happening. Then he's also currently in the PMC D League, as he said, so definitely go check that out, and his Showdown series that he does. We will have more interviews and the draft recap and power rankings coming soon for you guys. CJ, anything you would like to say before we close this one off?
Just want to say thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. You're always a pleasure to talk to, my friend. And let's see. I guess the only way that we could make this season even better than last season is if we run the table. So I have a feeling that that's not going to happen. But you got to aim for the skies, right?
Exactly, man. Sky's the limit.
So, yep.
No, you can finish. It's alright. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. So, yeah, if you guys want to watch me run the table, you better be checking back to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and keep up to speed. And if nothing else, you can watch me fail miserably and take satisfaction in my misery. So it sounds like a win-win if you ask me.
Yeah, man. I'll also drop your Twitter in the description so they can roast you after the battles. But that's gonna do it for us, guys. So it is the Bird and season 2 champion Choice CJ, and we out this bitch.